What is up, you guys? I am Jiraiya. I'm trying to be quiet, but I'm trying to be where you guys can hear me because my brother's asleep right now and I don't want to wake up. You just don't want to wake my brother up. If you ever at work or your pressure up, leave a comment. But I want to get up to 10 likes to do another vlog. And if you guys can do that, I will do it, absolutely. What I was really wanting to do, I was wanting to do hunting facts about the Titanic. So do it.
Facts Verse presents Haunting Facts About the Titanic. The musicians played as the ship sank. After the Titanic hit the iceberg, the captain ordered the passengers to start being put into lifeboats. To keep the passengers calm, he asked the band to play. When things began getting very hectic, the band broke up and said their goodbyes. They were going to stop playing and try to save themselves, but changed their minds. They continued playing up until the ship went underwater. Since then, they have been called heroes. The men in the band were Theodore Brayley, Roger Brico, Sean Clark, Wallace Hartley, John Law Hume, George Kearns, Percy Taylor, and John Woodward. All of the men died that night, and some of their bodies were never recovered. It took a long time for the Titanic to sink. Although they had people looking out for icebergs, the Titanic sideswiped a huge iceberg. The ship didn't sink instantly. It took 2 hours and 40 minutes for the entire ship to sink under the surface of the ocean. This gave the crew plenty of time to get the passengers off the ship. Unfortunately, there weren't enough lifeboats for everyone on board. There weren't enough lifeboats. The Titanic was large enough to carry 64 lifeboats to save passengers if the ship were to sink. Since the ship was considered to be unsinkable, the ship's designers chose...
Okay, that was... What kind of captain is that? They tell the freaking musicians to freaking play to keep the... He literally just killed them. That was his fault that they died, too. Wait. They didn't even know that he's about to wake up. Wow. What kind of captain is that? The kind of captain, that real captain. That. Oh. Shut up like it. Jesus. Wow. I'm gonna get my... Okay, just walking around a little bit, my legs are like stiff and... But continue on with the video.
not to take up space by putting the maximum amount of lifeboats possible. The ship had only 20 lifeboats on board, which is the reason that so many of the passengers did not get off the ship safely, and most who went into the water drowned. Most of the lifeboats weren't even filled to capacity. Each lifeboat was capable of holding between 40 and 65 passengers. There were only about 20 people put into each boat. Honeymooners on the Titanic. There were a few couples who were on their honeymoon when the Titanic went down. Victor and Maria Penasco y Castellana were on their honeymoon and decided to end the trip in New York by taking a trip on the most luxurious ocean liner in the world. Victor was a very rich man, having inherited a fortune from his father and grandfather. When the ship hit the iceberg, Victor went to see what happened. When he came back, he told Maria to get dressed. He put Maria and her maid on lifeboat number 8. Sadly, he never made it onto a lifeboat. and he died and his body was never recovered. Another honeymooning couple, John and Nella Snyder, who were in their early 20s, were on the Titanic, but they survived. Some of the crew members were allowing newlyweds onto the lifeboats, along with women and children. They both got on the lifeboat. John died at 71 years old, and Nell died when she was 93. The ship's chief baker had to swim to be rescued. When the ship first hit the iceberg, and the chief baker, Charles Jogan, found out that they were going to be loading the lifeboats, he got his men together so that they could bring food up to the deck to put in the lifeboats, which included 4 loaves of bread per boat. He was supposed to be the captain of lifeboat number 10. However, there were already people doing that job. He drank a great deal of whiskey and stayed on the ship for as long as possible. He also threw deck chairs overboard so that people could use them as flotation devices. When the ship went down, he fought to tread water for 2 hours. When the sun came up, he spotted an overturned lifeboat with about 25 men standing on the side. There wasn't enough room for him, so he had to...
I don't think that he said he had to stay in the water.
sit on the boat with his feet and legs in the water. When another lifeboat came, he swam to it and stayed there until he boarded the RMS Carpathia. Even though he was in the freezing water for hours, all he had was swollen feet. The lifeboat drill was canceled. On the night the Titanic sank, there had been many reports of ice in the water in the area from the other boats who had passed icebergs. Even with this information, the lifeboat drill was canceled. Lifeboat drills were very common on ocean liners, and there was one scheduled for the day that the Titanic sank. For reasons unknown, it was canceled by Captain Edward John Smith. The unsinkable ship had a design flaw, making it sinkable. When the Titanic was built, it was said to be unsinkable because the bulkheads were each watertight. The problem was that the water could spill from one compartment to the next. This made the ship too heavy on one side, pulling it deep into the ocean. The Titanic was huge. The length of the Titanic from bow to stern was 882 feet 9 inches. That equals the size of 2 football fields. It weighed 53,310 tons. At the time, it was the largest cruise liner ever built. The Titanic will be gone within 20 years. There is a newly discovered rust-eating bacteria called Halomonas titanicae. This bacteria will eat what is left of the Titanic on the ocean floor. Within 20 years, it will have consumed the entire remains of the ship. The Titanic was a passenger's second boat sinking. A passenger on the Titanic named Raymond Aragavedia was a passenger on board the ship America on December 24, 1871. The ship was racing another ship into Montevideo Harbor when the boiler became too pressurized and resulted in a fire on board the ship. There were 164 passengers on board, and only 65 of them survived. Raymond was one of them. He escaped by jumping into the ocean and swimming for his life. Many of the survivors were very badly burned. Raymond was only scarred emotionally. In 1912, the Titanic was ready to set sail, and Raymond decided to face his fears and buy a ticket. Unfortunately, when the ship went down this time, he didn't make it. It was a while before the first lifeboat was released. After the Titanic struck the iceberg, the captain and the ship's designer met to figure out the extent of the damage. As soon as it was discovered that the water in the watertight bulkheads had spilled over from compartment to compartment, they decided that the ship would definitely sink. As soon as it was figured out, they started getting people ready to board the lifeboats. It was 1 hour after the collision. The water was extremely cold. The night the Titanic sunk, the water was extremely cold. It was very cold outside, and the ocean was only 28 degrees. That is 4 degrees below freezing. The temperature of the water was the main reason so many people went into the water that night and died. The discovery of the Titanic. After the Titanic sunk to the ocean floor, its remains were lost for 73 years. In 1985, a team of French and American researchers who were looking for the Titanic finally found it south of Newfoundland. Before this discovery, 3 other teams had set out in search of the ship's remains, but failed. The first reporting of the sinking was inaccurate. The first newspaper to deliver the news of the Titanic's sinking was the Daily Mail. On April 16, 1920, they reported that the Titanic had sunk and that no lives were lost. Clearly, this was a huge error. They didn't have the technology back then that we have today, and it was easy for stories to get jumbled. When the Washington Post reported the sinking, they got their information from the RMS Olympic. The front page read, 1,800 souls lost. Third-class passengers had to share a bathtub. The Turkish bath was designated for first-class passengers only. Each first-class cabin had a bathroom in the parlor suite. Unfortunately, things were not as good for the third-class passengers. There were just 2 bathtubs for the third-class passengers, and these 2 bathtubs were shared by 700 passengers. The richest man on the Titanic. The richest man on the Titanic was a man named John Jacob Astor. At the time, he was worth $87 million, which equals to $2.16 billion today. He was recently divorced and then married an 18-year-old girl. There was a huge scandal after he remarried so quickly to someone so young, so he decided to get away. He took his new wife, Madeline, traveling through Egypt and Europe. During their trip, Madeline got pregnant. She wanted to have the baby in the United States, so they boarded the Titanic. Madeline, her nurse, and her mates survived. Unfortunately, John did not. He was last seen a half hour before the ship went under the ocean smoking a cigarette with an American journalist named Jacques Futrelle. According to several reports, he could have got on a lifeboat. However, he gave up his seat.
Smoking a cigarette whenever he's gonna die. It's like saying this is what he's probably said. It's like he just probably said, "This is the end of my life. I just gotta smoke this cigarette. Go have your child in the United States. I don't give a crap about my life. It was a lie. It was all a lie. Just smoke my cigarette because cigarettes are my life. Get out of here, nigga."
To a woman and her daughter. There is another story that he gave up his seat to 2 terrified little girls. Many bodies were never found. This is one of the most haunting facts about the Titanic. When the Titanic sunk, over 1,500 people passed away. Sadly, only 306 bodies were ever found. Subscribe for more.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Boy. Oh, wait, crap. Okay, if you want to see Try Not to Laugh, make sure to like and subscribe. Without further ado,